What if Goten and Trunks were in the Avatar: The Last Airbender universe, Part 1? Now, Goten and Trunks were just playing around outside, and they felt like training with each other was starting to get really bored. And Trunks just recently heard about one of his mom's machines, so they decided to go and sneak into the basement and go and check it out. As Goten and Trunks get close to the machine, they end up fighting on who gets to play with it first and accidentally press a button. That ends up opening this. And before they can even know what hits them, they end up being absorbed inside and sent off to a new world. When Goten woke up, he noticed that he was in this little town place and had no idea where Trunks was either. And he ends up on some ship somewhere. Well, he says, "This is quite interesting." When Goten woke up, he met these kids, and he noticed the one with the arrows is really strong. What if Goten and Trunks were in the Avatar: The Last Airbender universe, Part 2? Now, Trunks gets up and looks around the boat, and he's just surrounded by soldiers that are just looking at him like he's the weirdest thing on the face of the planet. Now, as everyone around Trunks is making a big commotion, they start to hear somebody walking towards them. Now, Zuko walks around, and he finally comes face to face with the purple-haired child. "Who are you?" "Name's Trunks. Have you seen another spiky-haired kid around? Maybe he fell in the water." "How'd you get on my ship? Where the heck did you come from?" "Yeah, that's a long story. But seriously, haven't anyone seen a spiky-haired boy?" And then Uncle Iroh walks in. "Children really shouldn't be left alone without some form of guardian. Where is yours?" What if Goten and Trunks were in the Avatar: The Last Airbender universe, Part 3? Uncle Iroh takes a really good look at this boy. He's extremely young. He couldn't have just swam on top of the boat. There wasn't like a lick of water anywhere on him. So he either had to have fallen from the sky or literally appear out of thin air. Well, at the moment, I don't have a guardian right now, but I do have a friend that seems to be missing. Can you help me find him? We don't have time to waste finding your friend. Right now, I am trying to look for the Avatar. What if Goten and Trunks were in the Avatar: The Last Airbender universe, Part 4? Prince Zuko, what harm would it be to help him find his friend while he's on this journey with us? Fine. Just make sure he's able to help in some form of way. Trunks gives a smile and is very grateful that they're going to try to help him find Goten. But then, a thought really just came to mind in that very moment. And then, a thought just popped out of his head, and his father would probably be extremely pissed that he forgot he had this ability. He could just sense where Goten is. He literally has the power to know his exact location, and he didn't even think to use it till now. Goten focuses really hard, remembering Goten's key signature, what it felt like, and he feels it, but for some reason there's also another key signature that's also quite powerful. Now, mind you, this other person's power level isn't necessarily in the same ballpark as them, but still strong in its own right. And so Goten, really not having much of like an understanding of this world, believes that maybe there are other warriors and fighters that also use ki. Trunks notices that there are people in this world that do have pretty strong ki signatures, at least in comparison to his world. So he asks Uncle Iroh the question. Do you know if there are like really powerful like warriors on this planet? I'm sensing someone with a pretty high ki signature, at least in comparison to this world. And this catches Zuko's attention, because for the most part he's been trying to find a way to find the Avatar, but this kid just up and says that he can just sense a powerful force somewhere. So Zuko goes up to the kid and asks very sternly, Whose power are you sensing? And in what location are they? Prince Zuko, give the boy time to speak. Oh, it's just right there in that direction. I can also sense Goten. I feel kind of dumb for not, sensing this earlier. This isn't some joke, right? You are actually feeling a power source of some sort. Yeah, I can sense it clear as day now. If you want, I could just fly you there. Everyone on the ship is amazed at seeing Trunks just basically fly into the air, but Zuko tells him no because he wants his army there for when he catches the Avatar. What if Goten and Trunks were in Avatar The Last Airbender, Part 5? Team Avatar is a bit shocked considering this kid just fell, who knows how many stories from the sky, right onto the floor and wasn't dead. Katara is the first one to get up and go to Goten, basically trying to make sure that he's okay. She goes around looking at his arms, legs, making sure he doesn't have any broken bones or bruises or scars. Aang's the second one to go to Goten, basically just being his friendly self. It's just like, hey, little buddy. And Sokka is just looking at the air and then looking at the ground and then looking at the kid and went, how did you survive that? Oh, that? That's nothing. One time my brother accidentally kicked me through a mountain or two. Heck, I have been tossed around by Trunks several times when we're sparring. Wait, where is Trunks? Goten then proceeds to look around the beach to see if he can find his purple-haired friend and doesn't see him anywhere. Oh no, where's Trunks at? Can you guys help me find him? We were supposed to be here together. And this is when Sokka decides to interject. Wait, so there's another kid? Just like you? Well, I wouldn't say just like me. We are kind of the same, race, technically. But, can you guys help me find him? I don't know where to look. Goten, in this moment, is actually so worried for his friend that he forgets that he has an ability to sense where his friend's location is. And Goten is also kind of distracted with this new group of friends that he just found. So, his key sensing ability is kind of being put on hold right now. Aang, realizing that his new little friend Goten here is getting really stressed and high-strung looking for his friend around. So Aang decides maybe distracting him for a bit to get him to cool down will help them in the long run. Hey little buddy, do you want to go for a swim with me? There's a really cool creature that I want to ride onto. You want to help me do that? Oh, that sounds exciting! What is this giant creature thing? Goten decides that he really does need to lower down his stress level. And besides, Trunks is more than capable to protect himself in this world. So he decides, I'm gonna go and ride a giant serpent monster thing. Sounds fun. What if Goten and Trunks were in the Avatar The Last Airbender universe, Part 6? Goten was getting really excited. He wanted to know what kind of creatures they had in this world, and Aang was just heading off into the water. There was also giant fish, which he could not wait to eat at some point. Goten is getting ready to head into the water, and then he spots Aang, and he doesn't understand what's going on. Why is he... Oh, he sees a giant fin basically chasing after Aang. Aang is just running for his life, and that giant serpent thing just keeps getting closer and closer. And Goten finds it kind of funny, especially how Aang is just running onto the water. Aang ends up running back to land and runs right into Sokka. And Gohan can't help but think that that's probably gonna hurt tomorrow. And even though there is a giant serpent thing in the water, it doesn't deter Goten to go in there and check it out himself. So Goten just jumps into the water and tries to freaking find it. But while Goten was looking for the giant serpent thing in the water, he failed to realize that there were people who basically were tying up Aang and his friends to a wooden post. Goten was a bit disappointed. He couldn't find that serpent thing anywhere. And then when he came back up for air, he noticed that his friends were currently tied up. There were these girls wearing these really weird outfits that Goten has never really seen before. And an old man. And they're shouting at his friends for some reason. He doesn't understand why. They didn't really do anything. All they did was go for a swim in the ocean. Goten could easily free his friends, but he's really curious to understand why they're being interrogated. They didn't do anything. All they are guilty of is going for a swim and Aang almost being eaten by a giant serpent. But as Goten gets closer, the Kyoshi warriors notice this small spiky-haired child, and their demeanor somewhat changes. Hi! Why do you have my friends tied up? Did we do something wrong? So, Suki walks towards Goten, goes down to his level, and explains that they're kind of in trouble because they don't know if they're enemies or not. And then she asks if Goten came with them. Aang decides to explain that he is the Avatar, but no one seems to believe him, so he uses his airbending to cut off his ropes, and everyone is just shocked. What if Goten and Trunks were in the Avatar: The Last Airbender universe, Part 7? It's been a while, and Trunks has been noticing that Zuko has been just training non-stop, walking around the ship, doing a lot of exercises, and Trunks can respect a good training ethic, but he seems a little obsessive. Trunks is trying to understand why they're looking for this really powerful person. Is Zuko just looking for someone to fight with? Because that's the only thing that seems to pop into Trunks' head. Trunks figures that maybe if he can ask someone around the ship, they can give him insight on why they're doing this. And as Trunks is going around trying to ask the other soldiers like what's going on or more information about Prince Zuko, they turn him away because they think that he wants to play or distract them from their work, even though that's far from it. But then Trunks finally gets some luck when he runs into Uncle Iroh and gets his information from him. So, I can understand a good training ethic, but he seems a bit obsessive. Why is he training so hard? It's like he's doing this non-stop. Young one, please understand. He's trying to capture the Avatar so that he can reclaim his honor that he thinks he's lost. How can finding someone regain your honor? I don't understand. Young one, have you ever heard of the Avatar before? No, I can't say I have. All I know is that this person must be really powerful, considering I can sense his ki, and it's not that bad. The Avatar is the only being that can control all 4 of the elements. So, he is a very powerful person. But after you capture the Avatar, is your plan to like fight him or something? I don't understand. If Prince Zuko was able to bring the Avatar back to the Fire Nation, he might regain his honor in his eyes. And then maybe even regain his father's respect. As Uncle Iroh says this, he doesn't look very happy about those news. As if he would be disappointed if that happens. Trunks thought about what Uncle Iroh said, specifically on Zuko's father, and he thought about what he would do to gain his father's respect. What if Goten and Trunks were in the Avatar: The Last Airbender universe, Part 8? Zuko just sees the island. He can just taste victory just right at the tip of his tongue. He just needs to get the Avatar, and finally he can return home. He's geared up and ready for battle. Trunks was so busy and focused on the Avatar himself that it took him a while to notice that, hey, Goten is also in this same direction. As Trunks and Zuko are getting closer and closer to the island, the rest of, the Avatar gang just seem to be, enjoying themselves. Aang, since he's the Avatar, is being treated very well on this island, and Goten couldn't be happier, especially about all the food. And Sokka, getting a new appreciation for women. But sadly, it's almost time for battle. Trunks can somewhat understand Prince Zuko's motivation. Any child, especially someone like Trunks, can understand wanting the approval and respect from your father. But then Trunks gets a good look at Zuko's face and wonders, how did it get burned? Because just something doesn't add up. Because Trunks feels that if he's sending this teenage dude to basically go and fight a child, essentially, he at least wants to know why. So he walks towards Zuko, who's at the front of the ship, and basically is very stern, tries to imitate his father's way of speech. Prince Zuko? Why do you want to get the Avatar so badly? And how did you get that scar on your face? I don't need to tell you that. Just give me the location of where the Avatar is. That's all I need from you. Hey, I'm helping you, but I just want to know what I'm getting into. I barely know anything about you, and you know barely anything about me. I just want to know why we're doing this. Zuko debates whether he should tell this kid his story, because he really doesn't know how this kid will react, and the trauma of those events are still fresh and lingering in his mind. Zuko really looks at this kid and, despite his better judgment, decides to tell him. He tells him the story of how he spoke out of turn against his father, dishonoring himself, and then his father burned half of his face. He expects to see pity. But on Trunks' face, it's just full-on rage. What if Goten and Trunks were in the Avatar The Last Airbender universe, Part 9? Trunks can sense Goten nearby, and he really wants to go over there and see him, but at the same time, he really wants to keep an eye on Zuko. Things are starting to get really heated, especially when Zuko is trying to fight Aang, and certain things are starting to be set on fire. Even as innocent as Aang looks, he's quite the fighter. He used fans to basically push Zuko into a freaking building like it was nothing. As Aang and Zuko are fighting, Trunks is just scurrying around the village, and he finally finds Goten. Goten is really excited to see Trunks, and is also kind of wondering why it took Trunks so long to find him. Well, Trunks, how's it been going on your end? Mine's been fun. What if Goten and Trunks were in Avatar The Last Airbender, Part 10? Goten is actually getting quite concerned, considering the fire is starting to spread around everywhere, and he really doesn't want anyone around their area to get hurt. In Goten's mind, he thinks if he powers up and releases a strong wind, that it will stop the fire, kind of like when you blow out the candles on a birthday cake. And he really underestimates the power of said winds, because he almost caused a good majority of some of the houses to go flying. He looks around in a panic to make sure that no one's house got completely destroyed. And Goten takes this moment to hit him in the back of the head and say, "Stupid, you almost caused all their houses to fly away." What both of these two failed to realize was that they got the majority of attention from the people that were around. Most of the people were kind of fleeing the fires that were happening, but the ones that stayed, like Katara, Sokka, Aang, and Zuko, it became kind of noticeable. When he tried to use his firebending, he noticed that there was such a strong wind that his fire just basically kept on moving around everywhere. He looks towards the direction in which the wind is coming from, and it baffles him to think that the wind is coming from a child, and just has no idea how to process that. And weirdness upon weirdness upon weirdness just keeps stacking on each other. First, he meets a boy who can sense the location of powerful people, and then as soon as he even gets on the island, that so-called kid can fly, and then the friend of said kid is able to just produce wind from his body. And then his hair. He thought he was just his mind playing tricks, but he realized that it was going gold. Was there another avatar in the world that no one knew about? And the boy that brought him to this island to begin with doesn't look shocked at all. Like this is just an everyday occurrence. So does that mean that that kid is also a part of this? It seems this world just really wants to bring him more and more misfortune, because his first objective was to get the avatar. Hard enough considering he's one of the strongest beings in this world, but now he has to add 2 other objectives. 2 small children who seem to also have incredible power. Now he just needs to think of a plan to be able to get all 3 of them, and even that seems to be quite the difficult task. What if Goten and Trunks were in Avatar: The Last Airbender, Part 11? Aang is blown away by this new revelation. Are these 2 kids airbenders just like him? Like he thought he was the only one. But before Aang can really get excited, him and Zuko are still battling for a little bit. Aang is seeing the damage of this town and really coming to terms with the fact that if he doesn't leave, then a lot of other people will get hurt. So they need to do a retreat. Goten and Trunks start talking to each other about their really weird day. But they start seeing the flying bison freaking move away from them, and both Goten and Trunks, without even saying a word to each other, nod and decide to fly towards the bison. Zuko is extremely angry. He had the 3 of them in the palm of his hands, and now they're just flying away. And Trunks, the boy who originally helped him find the Avatar to begin with, is also flying away. But he can't really blame the kid either. And Goten decides to introduce Trunks to his new set of friends that he just met yesterday. Aang, Katara, Sokka, Momo, and Appa. Aang really wants to know if maybe they're related to the Air Nation somehow. Just the way that Goten was able to produce wind so naturally had to have been from someone who has literally done this before. Are you guys air nomads? Are you guys airbenders that were able to survive? Aang is just going around them, freaking side to side, just looking them up and down, trying to assess them, even though he can't really just tell by looking at them. Trunks looks at Aang up and down and then glares at him a bit, and then gives his response. No, I don't even know what air nomads are. We're just using ki. Aang and the rest of his friends are just glaring in awe, because they have no idea what the hell ki is. So when he says the word ki, they assume maybe he just is confusing bending with a made-up power and thinking they're the same thing? No, you bunch of dummies. Here. Trunks decides to make a ki ball into his hands, basically trying to show them the power that which he was referring. The one the most interested in what Trunks is doing with his hands is Sokka. He goes up front and tries to look to see if there's anything that's creating that light. There's nothing connected to it, so the only person who is creating the light is in fact Trunks, and he is amazed at that. Just completely amazed. What if Goten and Trunks were in the Avatar: The Last Airbender universe? Part 12. The Avatar gang and Goten and Trunks have been flying for a while, and both Goten and Trunks have been getting quite bored on this long flight, so they decide to just spar with each other in the middle of the sky. neither one of them are actually paying attention to the fact that they are causing a lot of, well, changes to the atmosphere. Every time they punch, kick, it ends up causing some sort of force that ends up pushing the clouds aside, and they're even aware that they're also causing a lot of shock amongst their new friends that they just made. Aang and the rest of his friends are just watching in just utter awe. It's not every day that you get to see kids that don't even reach up past their hips, really, are capable of causing the atmosphere to rift, and all the debris around them just seems to just fly away. And when they get close to the water and they start splashing down below and they come up, it seems that they fly so high into the sky at such a fast rate that their clothes end up dry anyway. This spectacle seems to be so distracting to Aang that he isn't paying attention to how he's steering Appa, and it takes him a second to try to rear Appa back in the right direction. It took a while for Aang to get the boys to stop fighting, especially since they were almost pushing Sokka and Katara off of Appa by accident. So, yeah, that was a thing. Trunks and Goten are like super excited because Aang is teaching them how to basically slide off into this like earth-like slide, and it's extremely fun. But the thing is, they kind of crash into a whole bunch of stuff, kill a couple cabbages by accident, and now they're being sent off to the king. While Goten and Trunks are just in the background thinking this is the most fun they've had in a while. But also thinking of a plan to get their friends out of that situation if need be. Because literally the only thing protecting them is rocks. And if there's one thing that both Goten and Trunks are very good at, it's destroying stuff. And they're meeting the king, and you can definitely tell that he's not all up there. And they get set into a jail cell that only has like 3 beds, a vent, but it's basically just an empty cube. Goten just takes a quick look at the walls and says, I could just destroy this, and we could just escape. Aang thinks about it for a second, and then decides that that's probably not the best course of action, because then it would make them look even guiltier. What if Goten and Trunks were in the Avatar: The Last Airbender? Part 13. Goten took a second to take in Aang's words, and didn't fully understand it. He ends up putting one hand behind his head, because it's his nervous tick when he's trying to really think about something, and it just doesn't make any sense to him why they would be staying in a place like this. But he decided to give Aang the benefit of the doubt that that would probably be better. Katara was trying to understand Aang's reasoning, and then it just started to click. If they did in fact escape here, it probably wouldn't go over well. It might end up just making them look like an enemy of sorts, and that's kind of the last thing they need. Not to mention, they weren't really even put into a dungeon of sorts. It was actually more of like a luxurious room, to be perfectly honest. Katara takes a deep breath in, and then exhales out. She looks at both Aang, and then at Goten, and then just says, we're probably not in like an awful situation right now, but Goten, if we are in any, like, extreme danger, I'm gonna need to count on you to get us out of it. Trunks ends up looking at Katara and goes, hey, don't forget about me. I'm 2 times stronger than that crybaby. Heck, I could even beat this stupid king of Omashu if I wanted to. Goten and Trunks had just been watching Aang go through these different trials, and they said to themselves in their heads that they would intervene if they really, really needed to. But right now, they're just thoroughly enjoying themselves. Even if they had to wear this stupid, like, rock ring thingy that kept on growing on their body. Goten and Trunks could easily just destroy all of them if they really, really wanted to. But they figured that they really wanted to see if Aang could do it. They just really wanted to see a battle. Trunks is just looking thusly at both of these fighters' skills. Freaking King Boomy's earthbending just seems on point. everything just keeps shaking. The earth around him just keeps being so malleable, as if it were made of clay. He keeps on getting Aang to his limit of his airbending ability. It almost seems like one of them has the upper hand over the other, but each and every single time it always seems like the other has a counterstrike. The battle ends with a really climactic ending. Aang gets his bow staff right to King Bumi's nose, and King Bumi has this giant boulder over both of their heads, and both of them just call the battle quits. It was very entertaining. What if Goten and Trunks were in the Avatar: The Last Airbender universe, Part 14? Trunks is having a lot of fun with this group, especially considering Goten and him are the strength, the muscle in this group. Trunks remembers that back in his home dimension, him and Goten aren't even considered the runner-ups for being the strongest. And as Trunks is setting up camp, thinking about what the next adventure is going to be with this group, suddenly he gets this strange sensation, a familiar sensation, one he hasn't felt in weeks. And it makes him panic for a moment because now he realizes what it is. Trunks knows this key signature. He has known this specific key signature since he was a child, and he knows exactly who this is. And he is scared to death. Now he needs to go find Gohan, or else they're both going to be in a world of hurt. Vegeta was going to have this kid on a goddamn silver platter. Bulma nagged him for several weeks to get this kid home. They only had enough energy in the machine to transport one person. They didn't want to send Goku because Goku gets distracted by things, and Vegeta gets to the point. Now, the device that Bulma gave him gets enough power for him to go to that dimension and then bring the kids back. There's only enough energy for one more trip, so he better be freaking careful with the machine. Vegeta thinks he feels his son's key signature right away, and as soon as he tries to follow that key signature, it vanishes out of thin air. And Vegeta's starting to figure that his son's trying to not be found, which aggravates him even more. Vegeta figures he's at quite the disadvantage for not knowing literally anything about this place he just happens to be in, so figures that he should probably not fly at the moment and try to get as much information as he can. Maybe there was someone who saw his son. It's not like his son didn't have such unique qualities to him. Vegeta sees these really tall metal ships and thinks, well, he really doesn't have any better options, so he just hops on a board and decides to go ahead for the ride, figuring that he'll eventually find information on his son. Eventually. Vegeta's stomach begins to growl, and a bit annoyed, he tries to go and look for food on the ship. Vegeta isn't even attempting to try to be quiet in this situation, and ends up gaining the attention of a specific person. And Zuko has his fist ready to fight. What if Goten and Trunks were in Avatar: The Last Airbender, Part 15? Vegeta is looking at Zuko nonchalantly as he just takes a bite of an apple. Zuko has his fist ready to fire flames at Vegeta at any moment, and just states, "Who are you, and how did you get on my ship?" Vegeta really thought to maybe just stay silent and not give a response, but he figured he would just give one. He said, "I saw your ship, I got hungry, here we are." Zuko decides to shoot a fire blast directly at Vegeta. And Vegeta just stands inside the blast. He doesn't move, he doesn't dodge, he just takes it head on. Zuko decides to stop his barrage of fire blasts and see the damage that he caused to Vegeta, only to find this. What if Goten and Trunks were in Avatar: The Last Airbender, Part 16? Vegeta at first really thought about using his Super Saiyan transformation and just decimating this ship. But then that little voice in his head was telling him that the aftermath would probably not be worth it. specifically Bulma's nagging, would not be worth it. Vegeta also felt the difference in power here, and it just didn't seem fair. Like if it was a grown man taking on a toddler. Zuko decided to strike Vegeta right now, while he is thoroughly distracted with something. He figures that this, right now, would be his best shot. But Vegeta is not really paying him much mind. His body's just dodging his attacks at every turn. Zuko shows off a lot of his training. His firebending and his martial arts ability are on the forefront. And Vegeta does find this interesting. What if Goten and Trunks were in Avatar: The Last Airbender, Part 17? Uncle Iroh was just watching the fight just take place, and he could already tell that this stranger was holding back significantly. Vegeta figures that he's let this fight go on for just a little longer than necessary, so he decides to just put an end to it by literally just punching Zuko square in the chest, and then he passed out. When Zuko finally regains consciousness, what greets him is Uncle Iroh and Vegeta talking about what he doesn't know because his mind is still in a haze from that punch from earlier. And as Zuko is trying to pick himself up, Vegeta begins to smirk directly at Prince Zuko and tells him that he has made a deal with Iroh to train him for the time being, until he finds his son. And Zuko just puts his head on his pillow.